I would like to have a show of hands of how many among you are doing 360 video instead of photography. Okay. And how many of you are doing stereo 360 video? Okay, great. So I'm pleased to present and to be the second woman presenting. We need to bring more women into this space, but that's another conversation. So what we have been doing at Jaunt is focusing specifically on 360 stereographic video. 2D 360 has been around for almost 10 years, and there are really good tools out there and products that address this already. So 2 years ago, Jaunt was started by a few founders who decided that stereoscopic video was really going to be the way of the future to bring immersion to viewers all around the world. And this was the very first prototype that was developed in 2013. It was huge. It was 150 pounds. It was doing real-time stitching. There was this big machine. It was sitting on top of it. But that's what allowed us to get our funding to start. And you can see the binaural microphone on top that we are still using for 3D sound capture. So we developed several prototypes as we went, most of them based on GoPros. And the current prototype that we are using includes 16 cameras. We have black versions and gray versions, depending if we shoot at night, at concerts, and stuff like that. We have 12 cameras around, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So the stereo is mostly on the horizontal, and the top and bottoms in this prototype are not full stereo. We managed to add some heat sinks, so you don't see them very well, but those are the little peaks that are attached to each camera, because as many of you know, GoPros tend to overheat. So we managed to have about 3 hours of recording without anything breaking down. And we've done some longer recordings. And the whole camera right now, we started printing, 3D printing plastic for the shell, but nowadays it's more in aluminum, it's more robust. And it's about 10 pounds. The main difference I wanted to point is that in order to do stereo video, we decided early on that we will not record with pairs of stereo cameras because we wanted to get to the highest quality possible of stereo. And when you have pairs, facing in parallel in separate directions, the stereo in between the pairs is really not that great. So we decided to go full circle and to use the overlap between all the cameras to compute the stereo after the fact. So we don't record stereo, we compute it. Before I go into the specific workflow, I wanted to share some of what we have learned about how do you tell stories in this new medium? How do you direct the user attention? Because that's a big issue. And I'm going to go through some of those, how to focus, how to use cues, how do you choose first person versus third person perspective, how do you design the set, where do you put the lighting, and how to integrate special effects and some interactivities. You can see on this photo, for example, that the camera is rigged on the cliff with the climber, and that's one of the gray camera, one of the ones that we use for day shoots. So there are several ways to direct the viewer's attention. One of the main things is that if you think about it, the rules of good cinematography apply, and it's also, you know, like a good theater play. They are able to direct the user attention without having a camera moving and framing the action. All the actors are on stage, and yet, you know, they are able, by good directing, to direct the user attention. So that's like the first step. The second step is to use lights and how lights are set up and how they are moving to really attract the attention. And sound cues are really useful, like if you want the user to look behind, and because they hear something is happening. And one of the things I wanted to show, so I'm going to show you a few examples as we go along. So, for example, in terms of lighting, we did a piece that was for Seven for All Mankind. It's a fashion brand. And we played a little bit with lighting and kind of a mystery dreaming sequence to be able to do I get the sound? So you can see it's a way to attract the user attention. And in this particular piece, I will come back later, we did also added projections on the room and all kind of stuff. So the camera placement is really important to be able to make the user feel part of the experience. So as much as we can, we are trying to place the camera really in the middle of the action. And this is, for example, when we do music concerts, we are usually on stage next to the singer. Or, you know, we have to discuss with them about where we can place the camera, because obviously we cannot place it, you know, right in the middle of the stage, neither. But we were fortunate enough, for example, with Paul McCartney, that we are able to use 2 cameras at once. And we had 1 camera in the front of the stage where you could see all the public, and another camera. That's on the piano, the technicians that are there, the big screen behind him, the guy at the battery, the amps. So it's a really different point of view, and you still see the public in the background. So that's where camera placement is really important. Another thing about camera placement is you know, depending on when you place the camera and the lighting, really the stereo that you get, the quality of the stereo is very different. You know, you need to have objects near and far. So another choice that you need to make is how do you want to tell the story? Do you choose only one point of view, or you know, multiple point of view? First person means that the camera is the viewer, and if there are like actors or people interacting, they are going to look directly at the camera. And third person means you are more like a fly on the wall, and you are witnessing the action, even if you are kind of part of it. And for example, on the mission, which was more like a narrative fiction piece that we tried with a bunch of actors and World War II equipment, we shot over a weekend with New Deal Studio. It was a collaboration. Basically, the director, Matthew Kratzner, decided to try both points of view depending on what he wanted to say in the scene. And so we've got some camera that is just witnessing what's happening, and some other where you are really, you know, part of the action, like when you are on the tank, advancing with the tank. Where do I go? So this camera right now is placed on a parachute. It's a first person. Someone is landing.
Where's Papanopoulos?
This is more like a witness now.
Let's come down over there.
Two guys.
This should have been a night drop. We don't have the case.
Here again, it's
Lieutenant Papanopoulos is the case. It was taken by the Germans.
And the Germans got the case? What are we going to do now?
Well, we got to go get him.
So it's more of a trailer. So the shots are really... On this one, you are first person again. You are like on the tank. Sorry for the sound. It's really bad. But in any case, the camera was always placed right in the middle of the action. And so it gives you really, you know, the feeling of being part of it. So another aspect is, you know, if you have to design a set, on the mission it was different. We went to a natural location, and usually you always have some buildings or some trees or something where you can hide all the crew behind. So whenever, you know, we shoot action, everyone runs off and is hiding behind stuff. On some other sets, or if you are inside, like for example the chateau that I showed, the fashion show, we were inside this room and there was no way, we needed some lighting, there was no way we could hide, you know, the crew there, and there was the sound also and everything. And the big projector that you saw that was following her around the room, of course this big projector had to be inside the room. So what we did instead is just shoot the room in 2 takes, you know. One side of the room with everything from the crew on the other side, and then the opposite. And then when we stitch it together, we just use half of the images for each, so that we remove the crews this way. So here it was an example of another collaboration we did with New Deal Studio, which they are known and specialized in miniature sets. And Ian Hunter, the director we worked with, is actually one of the person who won the Oscar for Interstellar. They designed the spaceships for Interstellar, the miniature one. So they designed this set for us, which was a full miniature set. If you want a sense of scale, you see the monster coming on the far right. This is a human size. So the set was about 2 meters high, you know, like 6 feet tall. And we also shoot a lot of sport and tourism-based experiences and learning, you know, how best to place our cameras and how to get a sense of the place. And then we did experiment also with camera motion. So, you know, when cinematic VR started a year ago, everyone was saying, well, you know, it's different. You cannot do cuts, you cannot move camera, you cannot do this and this because it's going to make viewers sick, you know, and there was a lot of sickness motion and, you know, people throwing up or feeling dizzy. And I'm very sensitive, so I'm the first one to say, wow, you know, it doesn't work. So on the mission, we did try a few camera moves, like putting the camera on the parachute falling or putting the camera on the tank. We also tried some handheld camera moves. Handheld, even with stabilization gear, turned out to be really difficult because it really makes you nauseous to just follow the guy, you know, walking and stuff, even when you stabilize it. But whenever we have simple linear movement, so or even on the tank, because we have the reference of the tank, you know, below us, or it's like being in a car, it's the same, you have a reference of the object that is moving with you, then the sickness, you have much less feelings of sickness. So we tried with this drone, and it was really interesting. Of course, anything I'm showing you there is not stereo because it's only a projection on the screen. And if you want the full stereo stuff, you know, I'm going to do demos afterwards. So on the north face, we have some static shots and then some moving shots with the camera on the drone. And sometimes you really have to follow the action, like those guys are going to jump, and then you have the cliff down there. Oops, sorry. You keep looking, you see the shadow. And this is more a static shot, but the guy is down there.
Sorry, can I ask a silly question? Can these things be watched at home, or?
Yes, yes. I will give you the address of the site at the end. You can totally download it at home,
okay,
and play it on, you know, on your PC, on Gear VR, or board, or yeah.
Thanks.
So another, you know, great potential application in sports, when you are able to really place the camera on the field and have the sense of, you know, the action being right in front of you. So I talked a little bit about also the application of branding and advertising. We've done, you know, we've worked with some brands like North Face and, of course, some fashion-related show like Rebecca Minkoff and 7FAM and other ones coming up. So I talked a little bit about lighting before. what we did on the mission and some other, like Black Mass, which was kind of a little horror movie, is you can also use LED light nowadays. You have clip-on LED that you can put, on different places, either hidden or sometimes even on the tripod of the camera to be able to light the set the way you want. And of course, on this piece, lighting was important too. You are first person there. This is kind of a bit cheap stuff, but it's fun to do. We've got some scary people.
Isn't this place great?
Anyway. Girls really don't like to watch that, but guys really love it. So that's some of the elements that you use to make those pieces and to make them work. We have also found out that trying to incorporate 3D elements of visual effects is also fairly easy. Because it's a spherical video, you can always put it on a sphere and add 3D elements in the middle. You can also incorporate a spherical video into Unity and develop interactive experiences and which are more like 3D based. So all of those, this is kind of all the stuff you can do with virtual reality cinematography. And now I want to talk a little bit more about the workflow. So we are trying to address all the potential areas where technology is needed to be able to produce and distribute, to shoot, produce, and distribute VR content. Basically, we started designing our own camera because as you know, there is nothing on the market that was available 2 years ago. Even nowadays, there is no professional camera on the market that will let you do stereo 360 video. So that's why we designed our own. Then we have also been designing our own stitching rendering software, because not only do you need to stitch the spherical image together, but you need to compute the stereo and to make it right. And adding stereo to 360 video, as most of you know, it's already a challenge. But on top of that, when you add stereo, it multiplies all the issues. What we also are doing is making sure that we are totally compatible with professional workflows, which means that our images need to be readily usable inside of all the editing tools out there, like Premiere, Final Cut Pro. They need to be able, to be integrated. If you want to add CG content, Maya, Unity, whatever, 3ds Max, being able to work in compositing, also to be able to add elements, to add effects, like when we are doing the fashion piece, we added all this projection mapping on the wall. When we were working on the mission, there were like bullets and explosions that were added as visual effects. And of course, there is all the color grading that goes on, the sound editing, if you want to direct the attention of the user on the sound. So we are not really targeting the consumer market where you point, shoot, stitch it together automatically and then publish it automatically. We are really more interested in professional creators who are going to want to do some additional work on the piece before they publish it, and just being able to do editing and add and edit multiple views together is like the basic stuff. And then we are also working on the content distribution side, so that we provide tools for people to automatically encode the master video into all the possible formats out there, and we have our own player with different versions for all the available headsets. So, like I mentioned before, this is the current camera. Can you tell me how much time? And this is the current camera, and we are continuously developing and improving our camera system. So right now we are developing a professional grade camera that is going to use high-end sensors and lenses that are not going to be GoPros anymore to overcome some of the limitations that we found out. Especially when we shoot in low lights or concerts and there are like explosions and lighting, and also outdoor with a lot of changing lighting conditions, make it really difficult. And we use, we record spatial 3D audio. We, the rest I already said. So basically, after recording and uploading all the videos, we use our own software right now to automatically synchronize all the images, to remove the lens distortion, to compute the alignment and the calibration of the various cameras together, to compute also the color and exposure matching between all the different cameras, and then to stitch into a panorama. But we do that not just for a single 360 panorama. We compute actually two views, a left and right view. And the way we do that, we use computational photography algorithm, and I cannot get too much into how we do it exactly. But basically, we use the overlap that we have between adjacent cameras to be able to compute what's the disparity and the depth of the different elements, and to be able to have a left and right view that is computed. This allows us, if we want, to change the interocular distance, because it's not been recorded with the camera. So for example, when we did the miniature set, we had to change the interocular distance to be much smaller, so that you wouldn't feel like a big head in the middle of this miniature set. Of course, the design of the camera has limitation. You cannot get values that are totally outside of range right now, but you can still adjust. I think we did 3 mm instead of 6 for the miniature set. And the other thing that allows us to do is we can also dial in the convergence that we want for the stereo. So, when you look at stereo on a big screen in a theater, they used to have what they call zero convergence is at the screen, and then anything that's in front coming at you is, negative space, and anything that's behind positive space, or whatever the opposite. But when you don't have a frame anymore, it's different. But you still want the user to be comfortable when viewing stereo in the Rift. And that's another way to also direct the attention, is to choose, and that's a big part of what directors do in stereo movies, is to decide where is the convergence going to be, which is the most natural place for your eyes to look at in a stereo image, because the objects are at a natural distance for you, are converging easily on your eyes. You don't have to adjust. So that's all the stuff that our software allows us to do when we compute the stitching and the stereo at the same time. And the other thing is that regarding stitching and stereo, you cannot stitch independently the left and right eye. That would be too easy because the stereo has to be aligned, and stitching independently two sets of images might give you very different results in the left and right eye. So that's another thing that needs to be taken into account, that the stitch has to work for both the left and right eye. And it's the same thing for color matching between the two eyes, for alignment and various stereo parameters. So when we get into compositing, we use the equi-rectilinear format. That is like the default format. We output ProRes. We can output full. Right now we have a workflow with 4K movies, but we can go up until 6K. It's just a matter of the pipeline that we are using right now is optimized for 4K. And that's with the current camera system. I'm not talking of the future. So that's, we get two of those, the left and right eye, and we work in this format. However, as some of you might be aware, some of the tools out there are not well designed or not designed at all to work with equi-rectilinear images, equi-rectangular, sorry, with this kind of spherical projection. And especially some of the compositing tools. So we have to develop some, plugins to make it work, and we are also working with the tool manufacturers in collaboration with them to develop specific tools for spherical and stereo video. Simple things like doing titles, projecting, flat 2D titles into a 3D sphere with convergence distance that you choose, which distance do you want to put your title at, whether you do that in Premiere or in some compositing software. Being able to extract a rectilinear image if you want to patch the nadir, for example, work on that and then reproject on the sphere. Being able to compute disparity maps. That doesn't work with equi-rectangular images, and it needs to be it's very cumbersome now how it needs to be done. Disparity maps allow you to have depth maps and allow you to modify your stereo in post-production, or to insert 3D objects at the right distance if you want to. So those are all kind of useful tools. So right now we are working on developing this kind of ecosystem of tools that will allow professionals to work with this kind of images. The same thing for editing. Sometimes it's not obvious to edit cuts between two scenes and to be able to preview that cuts are going to work in all directions. So on the distribution side, right now we started to release content last year in October, and we have been trying to release content on a regular basis. So we've got a bunch of different experiences, like I mentioned. It goes from music concerts to fashion to some TV shows. I did not mention those. Sometimes some national TV show will ask us to do like a little something on the side to promote an upcoming show, like Other Space, for example. We have some narrative fiction, and then the sports, and some 3D experiments also. And the current headsets that we support, that the format that we export to, and the players that we have include the Oculus, Cardboard, of course, Samsung Gear VR, and also the Zeiss VR1. So the Oculus, you have to play with a computer, either Mac or Windows, and the rest of those headsets you just download onto your phone, and you put your phone in the headset to be able to view the experience. So that's kind of what we have been up to so far. Many people ask me, like, where do you think that VR, cinematic VR is going? So the main thing is you need to be able to create, an important number of VR experiences for people out there to be able to download and view and experience. So, we are really pleased that Google is deciding lately to take on, the cinematic VR space as well, and to make it easier to create, a lot of VR experiences for people, because the more experiences are going to be published out there, the more viewers are going to have choices, and the more, players and cameras can be used, and that's just going to bootstrap the entire virtual reality ecosystem. What we choose to do is try to focus more on professional quality content, and also support a diversity of headsets. So right now, Jaunt is focusing on those type of kind of mainstream domains like adventure, sports, news. We have a big partnership with Sky TV, which is one of our founders. Fashion, pop culture, documentary style, narrative, film and TV, travel, and of course music. So far, music concerts have been a big hit in terms of downloads. Like, really, people want to experience an event where they couldn't be, or they want to re-experience an event where they were, but they were in the in the back of the stadium, and this time they can be on the stage up front. So far, each experience has been a separate app, on the Google Store, and we're starting to have also iOS, Apple apps. And what we are going to do is change that to have a single distribution app where you can, access and choose and view all the different content from inside the same app, so you don't have to download each time different apps. And of course, we are going to support all the upcoming headsets, and I'm sure there are more coming than those. It's fairly easy once you have the master to be able to encode from all kinds of different outputs. Some of the other things, beyond next year is really to have more content in terms of, for example, VR series. I've seen there are some 360 video series that are already starting out there. Longer VR experiences. We don't know how long people are going to be willing to watch those things. Most of the experiences that we have been doing have been like 3 to 5 minutes. And are people willing to stay in VR for 30 minutes? We don't know. There are also other companies focusing more on developing social VR, where you can be in a shared space and watch some movies together, or discuss together. And we think, like, for sports, for example, that would be probably something that people want to do, because if they are far apart and they want to watch some live event together, that might be a good way of bringing the social part inside VR again. We haven't tackled much the interactive aspect of VR. There is a big part of the VR industry that's about gaming and interactivity and being able to interact with your hands or your gaze or whatever. And right now we have been focusing mostly on linear videos because there is already like so much that needs to happen to make it a viable business. But definitely we are interested to look into more interactive storytelling and videos. And the way we are looking at it and positioning ourselves is to really have this fully integrated model. So some of you may know that a few weeks ago we announced Jaunt Studios, which is going to be a full-blown production studio, because right now we have kind of a small production team at Jaunt, but it's not yet a professional studio. So we are going to have a full professional studio in LA, Los Angeles, that's going to work directly with some of our partners to help develop, the VR experiences. And we are continuously developing the relationships with the industry, whether it's more media content creators like Sky or Revolt or Condé Nast. We have a big partnership with Condé Nast, anything tourism and those kind of stuff. And also the technology partners like the Foundry for Nuke or other partners to be able to develop and have those plugins that will make your life easier for creating and editing VR experiences. And then, of course, what I mentioned, which is the total support for any HDM that is out there, from mobile to PC-based system. So basically, we are targeting an end-to-end pipeline and trying to provide tools and services in every step of the pipeline. So now, if you want to see some demos, I have all those experiences that I've shown you that I can show you on the Rift or IVRPA. I will set up a table outside in the cafe. You can also download them yourself. You can go to Google Play and look for Jaunt, and you will see all the apps that you can download. And you can also go directly to the website, to the content page, and download content from there. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email and I will direct you to the right person. Thank you so much.
Maybe the first question from above, without the microphone. This time. The question is, how do you handle with the non-reliability of the GoPro cameras? They're packed in your rig, and from time to time we have a problem that some of the cameras...
Yes, it happens to us too, Sometimes we're going to shoot and one of the camera just never records. So yeah, it happens. Hopefully not every shoot, and sometimes it goes down in the middle of the shoot, it starts recording and it goes down. So we try to manage with, because there is a lot of overlap, then we have to really fix it manually. And we try to manage with the overlap from the other camera, but then we lose some of the stereo at this place, so we have to recreate it if we can. It's just a lot of manual work, yeah. But we have those issues as well, yeah. And rolling shutter is a big issue, especially when you go to concerts and live events and stuff like that, where you have explosions and lighting, and suddenly you see this big white bar, scrolling through your image. And same thing, you have to fix it manually or just live with it. Yeah.
Nathalie, thank you very much over here. Thank you very much for this informative presentation. Could you say a little bit more about your process of capturing and processing audio? What's the process from A to
Yes, I'm not a specialist of audio, but yeah, definitely we capture audio with this binaural microphone that allows us to capture audio in all 4 directions, and then either we use the recorded audio from the shoot and just keep it and transform it into an ambisonic file, which allows us to have this 3D sound. Or we go through an outside sound creation company that will add more sound or more effects or whatever music or what we want, and they create the 3D sound file for us. But definitely we record 3D sound, and then how it's post-processed, it's either in-house or it's outside. And we can work separately on the video and the sound, then we reattach them together at the end before we output to all the different HDM formats.
What exact codecs are you using for the output?
What exact codecs? That I will have to check with the sound guy. I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, output is, final output is H.264 for those headsets. And for the video and for the sound, yeah, for the sound I have to check. I know we also support Dolby, also lately. That's another one that we support, Dolby sound.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm here.
Yeah.
One question is about the noise in low light conditions. How do you manage the stereo noise, or you just suppress all the noise as much as you can?
Yeah, in low light condition we get a lot of noise. We have, in our software, we have a way to try to compensate a little bit. It's a bit like an HDR processing that we do to try to compensate. Because we record, from 16 different cameras, then of course each camera is not set up the same for aperture, and when we bring everything together, the color range is more than just the 8 bits, so we try to keep as much as this color range as possible. And then, yeah, either we post-process and try to remove the noise. But yeah, if the image is all black, we are never going to get any depth or any information like that, because we process only RGB right now. We don't have, an infrared, whatever. And anyone, computing depth is going to have a hard time in low light and dark images.
So you try to just compress the noise as much as possible?
Yeah, or clean it up, with noise. There are noise suppression, tools out there that are already there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question about the storytelling and storytelling. How to tell the story.
Yeah, storytelling.
Yeah, and when we start to shoot a movie, we have to write the script,
yes,
or the scenario first, and we have to compose every storyboard, different angles, how to shoot your subject. And in cinematic VR, can you tell us more about how to compose your scenario, how to write a script, and furthermore, is the multiple storytelling possible in cinematic VR? I mean, you provide content and the different audience, they scroll, they have different angles, and everyone will get its own story. So multiple story possible in cinematic VR.
By multiple story, do you mean interactive storytelling, like you make a choice and the story goes another path? Or do you mean there are multiple stories happening at once in the same image?
No, I mean, it depends on the audience. I look to the left first, and then I look to the right. So I got the story A.
Yeah.
If I look at down and left and right, I will get story B. So everybody will get this story. It's a multiple storytelling. Is that possible in cinematic VR?
Yes, I think so. We still need, to experiment a lot more with this new media. That's for sure. In what we have done so far, and we also do some analytics, like heat maps, to be able to see where people are looking most of the time, so that we know if what was intended actually works or not. And it's not really surprising, the results, is that people are mostly looking at what is moving, what is human beings, lighting, sound, any things happening or moving. So we try to design our experience so that you have something to look at all over the place, because otherwise there is no point in using VR. If everything is happening just in front of you, there is no point to turn or look behind. But you have to be careful, and in the mission we had a little bit too much of that you had too many competing interests. So you could look here and here and here, and it was happening, and therefore when the cut was happening, time for you to look around again, you were totally missing what was in the next cut and the main action that was happening. So that's the that's the rule. Like if you have too much happening at once and competing stories, then it's going to be hard to really focus. Or the user will have to come back and look at it 2 times or 3 times or something like that. But definitely, yeah, the idea is to still keep in mind, one-man storyline going on, but to provide interesting, elements around. What we have found out also is that the cuts have to be, much longer in VR. You cannot do quick cuts. Like it's, nowadays it's really the rule that we have like really short cuts. When I used to work in films and VFX, because that's my background, they give us a shot to work on. It's usually like 200, 300 frames. It's like a few seconds. And I start to work on VR pieces, and sometimes I have like 5,000 frames. I'm like, wow, this is way too much. But no, because we need to have cuts that are longer, because you need to have both the establishing cut and the close-up and all of that within the same cut now. So when people first look at a new environment for the first time, they need the time to look around. You cannot start your action right away. You need to give them time to look around. And then if you come back to this same environment a second time, then you can make the cut much shorter, because they have already looked around and they know where they are. They are not going to look around the second time unless something has changed. So those are, it's kind of common sense when you think of it. We haven't experimented so much with like multiple lines of storytelling at once. I'm sure there is some interesting things to be done. Another possibilities also that I would be interested to try is like not only space but time. Like you could look at the future in this direction and look at the past. If you look back, or all kind of different things could be experimented. And that would be an interesting way of telling stories as well, especially when you are visiting places or cities that are being transformed, stuff like that. Do we have time for more questions?
Any other question? Thank you, Nathalie.
Thank you.